When you're in a job interview, do you write down the questions that are being asked of you? Do you then take a moment to circle the key words to identify any critical themes, any critical items that are being asked of you? If not, you are missing two very simple and very critical steps that you should be doing in any interview at any company, and taking a moment to understand what's asked of you and taking these few extra seconds in the beginning will make all the difference. And when we coach our clients and they answer the question and it feels like they didn't really connect with the question, at the end, we always ask them, hey, can you restate the question for me? And 100% of the time, if they feel disconnected, they weren't actually answering the right question, and it could have been solved just by writing it down. My name is Jeff H. Sipe. I'm the founder and coach at practiceinterviews.com. And in this video, we are going to break down some of the simple steps that are going to set the tone, set the balance for creating a great interview right off the bat. Item 1, pen and paper. Hey, I know it's 2021 and most of us hate handwriting, are very slow at handwriting, and probably because we handwrite so little, it's pretty sloppy, pretty messy, but you can't be hitting the keys on a keyboard during a virtual interview. And obviously, when we go back to going on site, the likelihood that you'll have access to a laptop, to a computer during the interview is small. So get comfortable writing the questions down using pen and paper, and just remember, have a few pens just in case one or two of them die. Item 2, restate. Because we tend to be slower writers than typers, any question with any amount of length, it's just probably going to need to be repeated more than once because we're not going to be able to write everything out. Don't worry about asking your interviewer to restate the question. Just make sure that you are getting the question right, and then you will restate it to them after you completed writing it down. Now, a couple of tips. I don't want you to focus in on the whole question. Just work on getting half of it right in the beginning. And then if for any reason your interviewer just starts to get annoyed by the fact that you continue to ask them to restate, I want you to acknowledge it and say to your interviewer, Sue, I'm really sorry. I'm a really slow writer. I'm used to typing things out, and I just want to make sure that I'm getting these questions right. And hopefully what that does is that's a moment for Sue to acknowledge that interviewing is hard and just maybe spend a moment in your shoes. Item 3 is a shortcut. And I specifically just quickly want to focus in on behavioral questions. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a moment, but writing down the tell me about a time when, or give me an example of, we actually don't need to write that part down. Once we hear those words, we can just write B dash because it's going to be a behavioral question. And then anything that comes after, tell me about a time when, or give me an example of, that's when we're going to want to start writing down the question. Yeah, it probably only saves you a second, but it's really valuable. Taking this step, doing this item, will take a little bit of practice. Item 4, identification. Now that we've written down the question, restated it, we want to really identify our path forward. So instantly we are asking ourselves, is this a behavioral question? If it is, we're going to want to use the STARLF method: situation, task, actions, results, learnings, and follow-up questions. And then we're going to want to obviously think about what story is most appropriate, but where are we going to start the story? Where should the story begin? And we'll touch a little bit more on this later when we do the screen share, but it's going to be really valuable to figure out what is the question asking and where do we get started. That will really help you answer the question well. Now, if it's an open-ended / hypothetical question, you're going to want to use the CFAS method, which is clarify, framework, assumption, solution, and we're instantly going to want to think about 2 items after we write it down. We're going to want to start to think about, okay, what are our go-to clarifying questions? And then what's a framework, multiple frameworks, a hybrid framework that we could use to answer the question? Item 5, circle the words. I looked everywhere to see if anybody else out there was giving this guidance, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And the criticality of circling the words is that we've written the question down, but now we're identifying the themes. We're identifying the key words that are really going to help us answer the question. And this will literally change everything for you. And there's a few reasons why. First, it just means that you wrote down the question. If you're circling the words, you wrote down the question, and that's great. Secondly, you're taking the time to think through the question. So by circling the words, you're just slowing down a little bit. And then third is that slowing down is getting you more connected to helping you get more to the solution phase. Again, you're going to have to practice this exercise to just get really comfortable with it. But once you do, you will notice a complete difference. And if this process takes you a little bit of time, simply let your interviewer know, hey, Sue, I'm just going to take a few moments to think through the question. I always want you to be taking your time. Even if it frustrates your interviewer a little bit, you will get better results by slowing down. Item 6, test it. So I mentioned a couple times the power of practice. Now, to know if this is an impactful strategy for you, test it with a significant other, a friend, a current or former colleague, etc. Just test it. And you could go as far as to A/B test it and say, okay, I'm not going to write any of the questions down. I'm not going to circle the words. I'm not going to take time to think through it. I'm just going to answer it. And I'll take the other approach and maybe not tell the person you're practicing with and see the impact. I mean, the A test, again, I don't think it's valuable. That's why I'm creating this video, but I think that it's something that I want you to think through at least. Item 7, screen share. Okay, I'm going to show you what this looks like. And for the purpose of item 7, I did type out the items just so it could be clean because my handwriting is not very clean and clear. But this exercise will just show you what I'm talking about and how I'm thinking through it, just to give you the visual of it. Let's practice a very common question that's asked to project, program managers, even product managers. Tell me about a time you had to communicate a major program change to your group. How did you go about it? And how did the team respond? So again, just use your imagination. Let's pretend I hand wrote this out. So next, we're going to use that shortcut I mentioned in item 3, which is we're going to remove the tell me about a time when. And we're just going to put a B there. Again, this is just going to take a little bit of practice, but then we'll have the B, we'll recognize that it's a behavioral question, and then we would write out the rest of the question. Again, it's going to take a little practice on this shortcut. Then let's get to this critical step. Okay, what are the words? What are the words that are really important to look at once we've written it down? So we absolutely want to think about communicate. It's a major project change. Okay, how did we go about it? And how did the team respond? So we're thinking about these core 4 items when answering the question. Then we are going to be thinking about, okay, what are the high level notes? So in the situation, we really want to instantly get to what did we communicate or need to communicate so that we're getting into the actions of this major program change and we're really getting and highlighting how we did it, how the team responded, and then how we took those next steps and created that action plan. Now in the results, this isn't about the successful program as much as this is interpersonal. So I want you to focus in on that, really think about, okay, what was not only done, but what was repeatable? Did you create a process now for when you had major program changes in the future? This looks like a lot, but you could actually do all of this. Once you wrote down the question, you restated it, you could quickly go back and circle and write out these notes in about 30 seconds. Obviously, they probably wouldn't look this clean, but this is the way I want you to be thinking about how you're writing down the questions and taking a few notes. Now let's flip to the open-ended hypothetical side. So this is a common question asked to somebody in the cloud space. What are the different steps you would take to guide a customer if she wants to develop an app using GCP products? In this case, I've just recognized that it's a hypothetical question, so I've put the H first, but I still want the entire question. I don't really want to remove any of the words at this point. It's a little bit trickier to do that on the hypothetical side. Now, circling the words. What you'll notice on the hypothetical open-ended side is that typically there are more words to circle, more words to focus in on. So I want to focus in on the different steps in guiding. That's kind of my starting point. I really need to find out more about this customer. I want to figure out what kind of development we're doing, what kind of app, and then correlate it back to the GCP products we're going to use. So these are some of the critical items that I'm queuing in on. And then I'm going to my notes section. So I know from a clarification standpoint, I gotta figure out with the steps and guiding and the customer, I really have to look into some of that historical data, and I'm gonna wanna know the industry, of course. Now with developing the app, I wanna know if this is something new or existing, if they're completely on-prem, already in their cloud journey. And then with GCP products, are we just modernizing? Are we migrating? Are we doing both? I just need to know a little bit more data about utilizing GCP products. And then on the framework side, I am thinking hybrid operational technical right off the bat. I need to establish needs, which is operational. I'm thinking about goals and objectives, historical data, budget, timeline, resources, risks, all those items. But then I'm flipping it to think about, okay, can we make this really secure, really scalable, etc.? So I know if it's client facing, especially in a more technical role, I'm going to go more operational technical. I will have already mentally prepared for that. Again, it looks like a lot, but the pre-preparation is going to be absolutely critical for you having success. And this is the actual visual of what it looks like. Again, it's not going to look quite this clean when you handwrite it, but it should look something like this. Okay, I promise if you take these steps, your likelihood of success will go up because you will be answering the right question and you'll be more connected to the question and you will be taking your time. Please try this, please practice this. I promise it will yield great success. If you like my content, please like. If you have any comments, please comment below. And if you like my overall content, please subscribe. Thank you so much.